You're listening to Milwaukee Mafia, your podcast dose of Wisconsin Mafia and true crime history.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Milwaukee Mafia podcast. I'm Eric.
I'm Gavin.
And Gavin, we are returning again. I think we're in 1975, is that right?
We are.
And what do you got for us today?
Well,
he's like, oh.
Let's just start here for a moment, all right? So, people who have been listening for a while know that I was doing this thing where I tried to cut each year down to 4 episodes.
And we had already decided that 75, that probably wasn't going to happen.
Right. So I just want to be really clear, 75 is not going to happen. There's still 4 murder stories for 1975 that need to be told. A couple of which will go on the Patreon, but there's that. There's going to be at least one more follow-up to this. This is a follow-up to last time, and there's going to be a follow-up to this.
Okay.
Now, they're not part 1, 2, and 3, but the characters overlap, so they're kind of connected.
Gotcha.
So, yes, we are just going to blow that rule out of the water for 1975. It'll probably come back, somewhat after that. 75 is just a big year. 76, less so. 77, less so. So, we'll see. I mean, I'm sorry. You're getting more episodes. I apologize for that. But this is a story that was a really big deal at the time. Probably not anymore.
Okay.
Because it focuses on a man named Sid Ceasar. Do you know who Sid Ceasar is?
No idea who.
See, that's why this isn't gonna land anymore.
It's not like Caesar's Palace guy or something like that.
No. So Sid Ceasar was a comedian, and he had a late night show called The Show of Shows, and he did some other stuff. He's been in a lot of movies and things, but he was like Johnny Carson level famous.
Okay.
So if you were around in the 70s, this guy was a big deal. Today, I don't think people know who he is.
Okay.
But just when this happened, this was a pretty big deal.
Okay.
So March 1974, Joseph Basile, who came up last time as involved in the extortion and burning down the restaurant story. Joseph Basile was at a tanner's convention where he attempted to recruit women to work as prostitutes. A tanner's convention, I'm assuming this is just literally guys who tan like cowhides, make leather. I'm assuming that's what a tanner's.
Why do you go to one of these to
meet other guys who make leather?
Yeah, but didn't you just say he was recruiting prostitutes?
Yeah.
Well, seems like an odd place to do that.
Yeah, he rented a room to use as a command post for women to come and drop off the money that they earned. There were a total of 4 women that he recruited working for him, and they would go between Angelo Fazio's restaurant on North Jackson and the motel where Basile was collecting the money. Basile, Jack Schlechter, who came up last time, and Herbert Holland, who came up last time, were to take 1/3 of the gross. Fazio's bartender, Jimmy Tuffer, was to take 10%, and Fazio said that he would take nothing, but he would make up the difference because he'd probably get increased business at his restaurant. The women charged $50 and made $1,400 over 3 days. No concept of whether that's good or not. Don't know.
But they're charging, they're prostitutes, and they're charging $50 and they made $1,400. I mean, do the math. That's a lot of sex, man.
It sure is. They were busy.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't know if that's good money or not, but they were busy. So Angelo Fazio is not really the focus of this episode, but I mention him here just because if I don't put him here, he's not going to be anywhere. So we'll come back to him later in the episode. He's not our focus. Coincidentally, around this time, Ralph Capone dies, and Ralph Capone has his funeral in Hurley, Wisconsin, and Angelo Fazio was one of the people who attended the funeral. So, again, not related to anything, but just give you a sense of Angelo Fazio is not only the brother of Louis Fazio, who was murdered a couple years prior, he's also friends with Ralph Capone, so he knows some guys. Sid Ceasar, who is the focus of our episode, was doing a 3-week run of a play called The Prisoner of 2nd Avenue in January 1975 at the Center Stage Dinner Playhouse. The Center Stage is run by Frank Balistrieri, officially run by Peter, but everybody kind of knows. This was a really good time to go see the play, not just because, hey, it's Sid Ceasar, but also after the end of this play, a movie version of this same thing was going to be coming out. So, hey, if you want to see the play version before you see the movie version, come to Milwaukee. Now's the time to see it. Tony Pipito goes to Herbert Holland, who we previously mentioned last episode and just a few minutes ago in this episode. Herbert Holland runs a massage parlor. Tony Pipito goes to Herbert Holland and arranges to have a 23-year-old woman meet Sid Ceasar at the Astor Hotel. The next day, Herbert Holland approached Pipito for the money to pay for the woman that was sent to Sid Ceasar, and Pipito said that he would have to get it from Frank Balistrieri at the Center Stage. The conversation on the money was overheard by another person there. A few days later, Pipito gave a check for $150 to Holland. These women at the Tanners convention are getting $50. Here he's handing over $150. Like, this seems like this is a better deal here. Later that same month, Tony Pipito approached a man named Thomas Gorella, who has never come up before and will never come up again, and asked for, quote, 3 broads for a party with Sid Ceasar. In return for this, Pipito would speak to someone about getting Herbert Holland's bail lowered. So in the manner of these couple weeks, between him asking Herbert Holland for a woman and a couple weeks later when he needs another woman, Herbert Holland has been arrested. And not for what you would expect him to be arrested for. He is in jail on a $100,000 bond for 2 counts of armed robbery. Exactly what he did, I don't know.
Now, Herbert Holland, he was the one that was involved in the burning of the hotel, but didn't really get anything because he really, he was the one that
wasn't really involved.
But he was charged with it for some reason and really didn't get anything because there was nothing.
His name comes up as part of it, but he wasn't really active in the burning. He didn't really do any violence. He was just kind of around the guys while this stuff was going on. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Gorilla, like I said, isn't really going to come up much, except for he works at this massage parlor for Holland, and he's known Pipito for some time. Gorilla has 5 criminal convictions against him. They were in Waupun prison together, so they knew each other from prison, like you do, you know. The women agreed to go see Sid Ceasar on the understanding that it would help get their boss out of jail. At this point, we don't know, but Pipito says, if you send some women to see Sid Ceasar, I'll get Herbert Holland's bail lowered. And they have no clue how he's going to do this, but apparently they trust him that he can. A few days later, Judge Hugh O'Connell writes a note to Judge Carl Bjork expressing his opinion that Holland's bail could be lowered. So his bail was cut in half. Hugh O'Connell, just so we know, will never get in trouble for anything.
Okay.
Ever. I cannot prove anything. But there is this weird coincidence where he's like, I can get the bail lowered. A couple days later, the bail gets lowered on the suggestion of Judge O'Connell. And Judge O'Connell is the same judge who appointed Joseph Balistrieri to be his court commissioner.
Okay.
Which, again, nothing wrong with that. It's not illegal. But just, there's a few things that, kind of smell funny around this guy. Not illegal stuff, but just not quite right.
You might be a little more associated with the criminal underworld than you're letting on to be, basically.
It kind of seems that way. But again, can't prove anything. So the county is looking into prostitution. Apparently prostitution in the 70s is either a major problem or it's a major focus of county prosecutors. I'm not sure which, but whatever the case is, this is about the time when it really starts getting cracked down on.
Okay.
So the assistant district attorney, Thomas Schneider, goes with a state agent and flies to California to speak with Sid Ceasar. They hear this rumor about Sid Ceasar having interacted with prostitution while he was in Milwaukee. So they fly out to go talk to him.
This seems bizarre.
Is it?
I don't. Couldn't you find somebody a little bit closer to talk about prostitution with than Sid Ceasar?
I don't know. But they got him out there. They questioned him, and when the press asked him why they were talking to Sid Ceasar, and keep in mind at this point, the press obviously does not know that Sid Ceasar had these encounters with the women. This is not public yet. The district attorney just says, this is an investigation related to a convicted felon with ties to organized crime. That's all they would say. Schneider spoke with the FBI and informed them that he was trying to ascertain how many people Tony Pipito had set up with local prostitutes. He had heard the rumor about Sid Ceasar, but he's like, is this an ongoing thing? Is he doing this all the time? Shortly after that, 5 men were charged with prostitution offenses. Tony Pipito, Angelo Fazio, Joseph Basile, James Tuffer, and a man named Craig Cooper, who really doesn't matter, but Craig Cooper apparently was, again, one of these guys who kind of knows what's going on. They were all released on a signature bond for $5,000, meaning they didn't pay anything, but they'd have to pay $5,000 if they didn't show up in court.
Okay.
Except Pipito, who was held in jail on $50,000, and he could not sign himself out. Additional charges were expected. At the time Fazio was arrested, he had a concealed .38 revolver on him that he was not authorized to carry as a concealed weapon. So they didn't really like that much either.
Yeah, that didn't help him.
Yeah. Tony Pipito was bound over for trial for soliciting prostitutes for Sid Ceasar by the judge. During a break in the hearing, Pipito told the reporters, quote, "They're letting 5 people go to get me." And indeed, this is not wrong. Sid Ceasar, another man, and the 3 women involved were all granted immunity to testify against Pipito. So they could have charged the women with prostitution. Mm-hmm. They could have charged Sid Ceasar with being a customer. They didn't. Instead, they gave all these people immunity to talk against Tony Pipito. So Tony's not wrong here. They did basically let 5 people go to try to get him.
Isn't that, in stories you've heard of prostitution, though, isn't that fairly normal?
Yeah.
Like the women never get in trouble for being prostitutes.
I wouldn't say they don't get in trouble, but I do think that it's more common to target the customers.
It's more tough.
Or definitely if there's a pimp involved.
Yeah.
I mean, they definitely want the pimp.
I would think the pimp would be the big one, but...
Yeah. I mean, in this case, is he a pimp? I don't know. I mean, not really, but... Mm-hmm. But he's kind of acting in that way for the purpose of this. At this preliminary hearing, one of the women involved said that when she met Ceasar at the Astor Hotel, Ceasar was mumbling his words. He didn't even seem to really know what was going on when she showed up. She stayed roughly an hour and performed a sexual act. What that means, don't know. A 22-year-old woman testified that she and another woman met Ceasar at a hotel, and they both performed a sexual act. Pipito was bound over on a charge of extortion after Thomas Garella testified that Pipito had threatened him not to tell what he knew about Pipito. So he's now been charged with this Sid Ceasar prostitution thing, and also on top of that, extortion, because apparently he's threatened everybody, like, don't rat me out. The women involved, their names are never released in the newspaper. They're, as a condition of them being granted immunity to testify, they also are not identified. I gotta give some credit to the people involved for that, the prosecutor. Like, we've got a very different attitude today than 50 years ago. Mm-hmm. Like, today, I think we're more sympathetic about prostitution. You know, nobody really likes that it exists, mm-hmm. but we're sympathetic to the fact that in many of these cases, the women are the actual victims. Like, they're not really going out there because they want to be criminals.
Right.
Whereas I think back in this time, that was less the attitude, and it was more like, you are like the worst of society.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to give some credit to the prosecutors for not like dragging these women down. So cool on them. Just my personal opinion, but okay. So Pipito asked to see if he could get his bail lowered. He's like, I'm in here on $50,000. He's like, obviously I'm not going to pay that. He says, I've made all my court appointments. I showed up for my arraignment. Like, I'm reliable as far as he tells the judge, I'm trying to better myself. I'm not going out at night and sticking up people. That apparently is not convincing. The judge does not lower his bail. While in the underground parking lot at MacArthur Square, if you're familiar with Milwaukee, how like the courthouse and the police station, everything is, there's all like this underground connected networks between them. In the underground parking lot near the safety building, Pipito got into an exchange with the prosecutor, Thomas Schneider. Schneider, who had opposed lowering Pipito's bail, kind of got the end of this, and Pipito yells, I could give you the guys who killed Fazio and Pograb. He further said, hey, Schneider, what are you trying to do to me, you little punk? And Schneider yelled back, justice. Pipito shot back, I'm going to beat these raps and throw a drink in your face. You just wait till I get out. This doesn't really sound like something that would really be said, but apparently people witnessed it. Like him responding, justice. Like that sounds like something like that would not be your actual response, but it was overheard. Pipito files a motion to get the federal courts to make the state court lower his bail, saying, this is unfair. I'm being, they're doing this against me, blah, blah, blah. The federal judge who answered it, John Reynolds, said that I don't see a problem here. Like, the state judge is within his rights to set bail as he sees fit. And he further adds, quote, having examined the materials available at the time the bail was set, including Pipito's rather considerable previous criminal record, it does not appear to me that such discretion has been abused. So basically, the federal courts are like, state court has the right to set bail how they see fit. And especially in this case, he's like, well, you're not being treated unfairly. Like, you clearly have a long record of breaking the law. Like, You're the kind of guy that high bail is for. Pipito's defense attorney, Robert Sosne, filed a motion to delay a hearing scheduled to see if Pipito would get his parole revoked. He was out on parole for charges of armed robbery, and they were going to pull his parole and send him back to Waupun. The defense attorney says, well, can't we just wait until after this trial, because it doesn't make sense to send him back to Waupun and then he's found not guilty and then we got to let him back out of Waupun again. And I would tend to agree with the defense on that one. Last time we had that argument where, hey, don't send me to jail. I got to be out of jail to prepare my defense for this case. That's different. Like in that case, like, yeah, that would be dumb, because as long as you have to keep going on trial, you never go to jail. Mm-hmm. Here, like, the purpose of sending a guy out back to prison for breaking parole is he breaks parole. But do you know if he broke parole until he's found guilty? Mm-hmm. So to me, I totally side with the defense on this one, because pretty sure he's guilty, but legally speaking, he's not yet. January 1976, the trial of Tony Pipito begins. With prosecutor Thomas Schneider as the prosecutor, blah, blah, blah. Robert Sosne for the defense. A jury pool of 20 was reduced down to 12, 8 men and 4 women. All but one of them said they knew who Sid Ceasar was. So again, like, Sid Ceasar is a pretty big deal. I'm not sure who the one person was who didn't know who Sid Ceasar was, but before the opening remarks, Sosne requested that references to the Mafia and Frank Balistrieri be banned from the court. Schneider, the prosecutor, said that Balistrieri's name was going to come up because he managed the center stage. The judge said he couldn't really prevent Balistrieri's name from coming up. He's like, if someone mentions it, I can't do anything about that. First day, Sid Ceasar comes out and testifies. They get him day one. He confirmed that he had sexual relations with 3 women who were introduced to him by Tony Pipito. He added that Pipito had also supplied him with marijuana. Ceasar said he paid one of the women $220. He was asked by the attorneys in court if he argued over the price, and Ceasar told them, well, you don't fight with girls. The money was later returned to him by Tony Pipito. Ceasar's testimony was favorable to Pipito. He said that Pipito drove him from the center stage to the Astor Hotel each night, and that it was Ceasar who asked if Pipito knew any girls in town, and asked again another time if he knew any girls, because he was getting a little lonely. And when I say favorable, not favorable like he didn't do it, but favorable in like, originally it kind of sounds like Pipito is like forcing this, like, hey girls, go to Sid Ceasar, blah, 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 blah. And Ceasar testifying is kind of saying like, it's like the other way. He's like, I was really pushing Pipito to find me some women. So it doesn't make what Pipito did legal, but it does kind of make it more like he was put in this position. Mm-hmm. Herbert Holland testified that Pipito called him and said that he needed a girl to have sexual intercourse with Sid Ceasar. When Holland asked for money, Pipito said he had to get it from Frank Balistrieri. A few days later, Holland was paid the $150. This is where Frank comes up in the testimony. Thomas Scarella testified concerning Pipito. I was scared of him, and I still am. Scarella said that just before the indictments came down, Pipito spoke to him at Sally's Steakhouse. I was to tell Herb Holland and the girls not to testify against him, or else he was going to kill them. I asked him if he meant me too, and he said yes. Gorilla claimed that he stayed home all weekend because he was afraid of running into Pipito. One of the women involved was actually with Gorilla at the time that Pipito showed up and threatened him, and she also testified, Pipito was glaring at me. It was like he had daggers in his eyes. He scared me. So the prosecution here is pretty straightforward. Sid Ceasar's like, yes, there were women. The guy who provides the women, Herb Holland, says, yes, I sent women over, and I got paid to do it. And then Thomas Gorilla testifies about, yes, this happened, and then we were told not to rat him out after the fact. So, like, this is pretty straightforward. Everybody here is coming out and saying the story. Mm-hmm. Then there's the twist.
The twist.
It switches to the defense end of things. And the defense called two surprise witnesses. A woman named Patricia Slutsky, which is a really unfortunate name.
Yeah.
And Roberta Pipito, Tony's ex-wife.
Okay.
Both testified that on February 6th, the night that this first one was supposed to have occurred, this first prostitution event was supposed to have occurred, after the center stage wrapped up for the day, they met with Tony at Libby's Lounge and stayed there until 2 a.m. There's no way Tony could have been involved in this bringing prostitutes to Sid Ceasar if he was with us the entire night. The women were confident that they had the date correctly, February 6th, because Roberta Pipito had just had her divorce finalized against a second husband on that day, and they were celebrating.
All right.
Of course, like you do. You get divorced from a husband and you go celebrate with your old husband.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, absolutely. So that's pretty strong. I do like that they go to Libby's. Libby's has come up in the past. It will come up again. The most notable thing for those who don't remember Libby's, we did an episode, and it might have actually been a Patreon, but we did an episode about the Russian roulette suicide.
Okay, yeah.
And that happened at Libby's.
Okay, yeah.
So, in closing arguments, the defense attorney described Pipito as simply the nursemaid to Ceasar, saying, he's just taking care of the guy. And he asked, why is Tony Pipito being singled out? None of the women or Sid Ceasar are being charged with this crime. Prosecutor Tom Schneider said, the defendant did everything but turn back the covers on the bed and tuck them in. And again, like here, there's some interesting legal aspects to this here. I think the defense is absolutely right that it's weird that all these people got let go. Like, if your goal was to make headlines, charging Sid Ceasar would be a way bigger deal.
Right.
So it's kind of weird. And the prosecutor, I think, like, is kind of overselling it to being like, this is the guy. This is the one guy responsible for this. So, like, to me, it seems really obvious that the goal here isn't to get Pipito for these prostitution charges. It's to get Pipito for something.
Okay.
Like, they just want this guy back in prison. So we're going to do what we can to get him for, not that he didn't do it. He did it. But it's like they singled him out because he's the one they see as the threat, not because he's necessarily the most guilty in this particular case. It's an interesting method of how to proceed on this.
The other thing is do you think that the fact that it was Sid Ceasar, that they're just trying to take some of the press off of him and put it onto some, basically turning Joseph Pipito into the bad guy so that Sid Ceasar doesn't look so bad for getting a bunch of prostitutes in Milwaukee?
It could be. It could be. Now, it is funny. If you look up Sid Ceasar, like, on his Wikipedia page, like, this incident does not come up. Okay.
This was another thing I was going to ask you. So this was it like a high profile thing when it was going on?
Like when it happened, it was probably high profile, but this had like no long-standing tarnishment of his reputation at all.
So like he just went on like as if nothing had ever happened.
Yeah.
That was another thing I was really curious about, because I would just assume that at this era, people would look much more down at that.
Yeah. And I don't know how that just squeaked by, but nothing happened to him.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, well, recently, Daniel Stern from one of the wet bandits from Home Alone.
Yeah.
He recently got caught, but they dropped the charges.
Really?
They dropped He's good to go. But yeah, like they cracked down pretty hard on him for a moment there.
Yeah, and see, like I see that like tarnishing you now, so it would make me think that it would be even worse back at the time.
I think
that
that's
this
reasonable.
guy's doing it, and it just doesn't seem like. But maybe Hollywood has been good at brushing all this stuff under the rug all the time.
Yeah, maybe.
So
I don't know. The next day, or maybe even the same day. I mean, it's pretty quick here. The jury comes back, and they find Pipito guilty or not guilty.
I'm going to say high profile guilty.
It's guilty. You actually would have been correct either way, but he is found guilty for the prostitution part of it. He's found not guilty for threatening a witness. The jury decided that if the threatening a witness would have been as scary as they made it out to be, he probably wouldn't have waited a couple weeks to report it. Mm-hmm. They said, well, if you were really that scared, why did you just not tell anybody? I don't know if that's a good reason, but apparently it was enough that they didn't want to convict him for that. But they did get him they got him for the prostitution. So
now tell me, in your opinion, so they nailed Joseph Pipito, right? That's here. How big of a win is that for Milwaukee? Is that a big damper on prostitution in Milwaukee, you think, or not really anything?
Okay. So those are kind of like two different questions there. How big of a win is it for them to get Pipito? I think that's a big win. How much effect does it have on prostitution? Probably none. Okay.
So he wasn't like big into prostitution. You're saying bringing him down, it was a bigger thing for other things he's done?
Just because he's got this he's a very violent guy. He's got a history of violence, and he's an interesting guy to me because he has this history of violence, but he also shoots off his mouth a lot.
Okay.
Like as you see like earlier in this episode, as they're like dragging him away, he's like, I can give you the guys who got Fazio and Pograf. I don't think that's true. I think he's bluffing, but it's, he's shooting his mouth off. And you would think that would not make him somebody the mob really wants, because he's unreliable. He might just say anything he wants to say. Mm-hmm. But he's consistently around. He'll come back again. Like, the thing that he's going to be most known for doesn't happen until the 1980s.
Wow.
So Pipito's not done yet. I'm not going to say what it is that he does in the 1980s, but I will, just as a sneak peek, I will say he gets sentenced to 120 years in prison for it.
Wow. Okay.
So like, they really don't like him.
We're going to have to see what gives you 120 years in prison. Yeah. So now, okay, do you think, so then you would be on the side that, do you think that in this case, they're not trying, they could give a crap less about Sid Ceasar. The reason why they're probably this case exists is because they can use the notoriety of Sid Ceasar to take down Joseph Pipito. Would you take that stance of it?
Yeah.
Like, they're not trying to smear Sid Ceasar in any way.
No, I don't think
they
so.
just saw an opportunity, like, okay, we have a high-profile person here that we can use in a court case to take down this guy we really want to get off the streets.
I think that's probably part of it, for sure. It probably got more headlines than it would have otherwise because of the Sid Ceasar name. How that affects the prosecution, I don't know, but it definitely, like, it's more of an opportunity to publicly go after Pipito, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like just by having Sid Caesar's name in it, it gets it more into the press, so more people dislike Joseph Pipito now as the case is going along.
Yeah. I mean, it's, again, like, they want him. Mm-hmm. I don't think this is a prostitution matter specifically. Like, if you went throughout Milwaukee, like, we're going to do another prostitution episode next time. So it's vaguely related to this, but not directly related to this. So you'll see some of that then. But, like, it's not like taking down this guy, suddenly prostitution is wiped out. Like,
right.
He's not probably 5% of the problem. Like, this guy is not a big deal as far as that's concerned. He's just a name that they want out of the picture.
Yeah.
So he's found guilty. He's sentenced to 3 years in prison by the judge. Again, keep in mind he's also on parole, so he's going to have whatever else he had left from that. The judge said, the testimony revealed that there is an undercurrent subculture in Milwaukee which operates outside of the law and of which the defendant had intimate knowledge. I think the verdict reflects the feeling of the citizens of Milwaukee that prostitution is not to be tolerated in this community. A fancy way here of just saying this shows that when Pipito needs things done, he knows who to talk to, meaning there's this stuff in Milwaukee that most people don't know about, but he knows the right people to talk to. So after this wraps up, the judge binds over for trial James Tuffer and Joseph Basile, who were kind of like the secondary people in the Angelo Fazio case. He dismisses the charges against Angelo Fazio. This, again, going way back to that Tanner's Convention thing. The prosecutor, who was again Tom Schneider, felt that Fazio's charges were dismissed because the judge, who was an elderly man, became confused and did not hear all the evidence.
Wow.
Now, in this case, our good friend Joseph Balistreri is the defense attorney for Joseph Basile. And Balistreri here, this is some rough stuff. So earlier I was giving credit to the prosecution for not, like, dragging the women through it, you know. Joe's not that nice.
He goes the exact opposite way is what you're telling me? Okay.
At this preliminary hearing, he becomes confrontational with the women. With one of them, he threatens that he could go toe-to-toe with her if she's going to continue to be a smartass. And then he accused another one of the women of making faces at him and said, I won't tolerate that from a pig. Like, he's not, like, being outright mean, but it's really clear that he's talking to these women in a way he would not talk to the men on the stand. Like, he's He thinks they're the lowest of the low.
And that's really interesting because when you say that, that doesn't sound like every other time we've talked about Joseph Balestrieri, he's been a very, very professional lawyer doing exactly what a lawyer should do. And
Yes.
This is not that at all.
He's a very classy, very well-spoken guy. But he has a real dislike for prostitution.
That's weird.
And it comes out here. Also, he repeatedly, like, when the women are testifying, he cuts in to correct their grammar. Like, which again, like, he's not gonna, if the men are up there and they misspeak, he's not gonna do that. So I don't know if this is some method where he's like trying to like bring them down to help his client. I'm not sure if that's what he's doing here, or if he just really hates these women.
It almost sounds like it's just a direct distaste.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay, so like I said, the judge at this point drops the charges against Fazio, but he does comment. He goes, well, if Fazio tolerates shady people in his place, the Common Council should take his license away. Schneider said, I don't think this judge knows what's going on. I'm going to reinstate these charges. And ultimately he does. Angelo Fazio was convicted of soliciting prostitutes at his restaurant. He was sentenced to 3 years probation, fined $1,000, and banned from operating a restaurant or a tavern by the judge. Some police officers wrote letters on Fazio's behalf. Other letters came from lawyers, a judge, nuns, waitresses, and businessmen. Fazio is a well-loved guy in town. His defense attorney, Henry Piano, said that these people think it's a damn shame that he suffered such tremendous political pressure for a stiff sentence. Piano argued that Fazio was raising 2 stepchildren and was not in great health. The prosecutor in this case said, he might be a nice guy and he might have some nice friends, but like he still knows that prostitutes are operating out of his restaurant, and one of them was only 17 years old. So, yeah, the defense's argument was basically here that Fazio's not taking any money, so he's not actually involved in it. Again, I guess if you're the defense, that's a good argument, but knowingly let them use your restaurant still seems like you're kind of involved.
Absolutely. It just seems like you're kind of dumb because you're not taking a cut of anything. You're allowing it to happen and not taking a cut. So,
yeah. So this was, like I said, this is not a big story by today's standards. It's pretty mild, but at the time it was a big deal because of the Sid Ceasar. I mean, for today's comparison, say it's, it's Jimmy Kimmel or the other Jimmy, one of the late night Jimmys in this particular situation, and they're arrested at a hotel with prostitutes and drugs. Like, their career might be over.
Right, and that's why I'm blown away by the fact that this guy slid, because now I kind of feel like you might have a fighting chance of not ruining your career. Because people are a little more but like at this time, I would think that bam, you would be dead to everybody the minute charges like this came up to.
And I don't know Sid Ceasar. I know who he was, but I don't know him well. Like I have no clue of who he was as a person. But I wonder if maybe this was maybe in character, because this is one of those really weird things, right? If you've got a good character and you get caught doing something, you get in trouble. But if you already have like a shady character, you can get away with that. And like I'm thinking like Frank Sinatra, okay? Now Frank Sinatra, huge success. Movie star, singer, very, very huge deal. But if he got caught, if he got pulled over and he had like a bag of cocaine in his passenger seat, I don't think anyone would even be like, oh my God, not Frank Sinatra. I think they'd be like, yeah, that sounds about right.
And maybe that's what it is. Yeah.
I don't even have to use Frank Sinatra. I could use modern day music, I mean, if a musician gets caught with drugs, nobody cares. They're like, that's what the music business does.
That actually is a fair point. That is a fair point. And that even extends to Hollywood too, because there's a lot of actors.
Depending on who it is.
Yeah, a lot of actors have a long history of drugs and everybody just thinks it's funny. Or whatever.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Not to single out anybody, but Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen, he drugs, but also, if I'm not mistaken, and if I am, I apologize, Charlie, but I feel like he had a phase where he was like abusing women for a while, like he was beating up women.
That I don't know.
I could be wrong, and I apologize if I am.
But you're probably very right.
But it's one of those things where, like, if you got that bad boy image, you can kind of get away with that.
Yeah, and that could very well be exactly what happened in this scenario. Because
so I don't know. I don't know Sid Ceasar, so I don't know if he's squeaky clean Mr. Rogers or if he's kind of got an edginess to him. I don't know.
Yeah, and late night TV probably. There's a good chance there's an edge to him, I would think.
Maybe.
That seems like a good place for an edgy person to be living.
Could be.
So
it's weird. To me, if David Letterman had been caught doing some really shady stuff, I would have been kind of surprised. I'd be like, David Letterman? Like, the guy's weird, but he's not a bad guy. But like, if Craig Ferguson, I'd be like, oh, well, sure.
Come on.
I mean, Craig Ferguson's pretty messed up, right?
So the other thing, I don't know if you ever said this, and you probably don't know, but what was the whole story behind how did Sid Ceasar end up in this scenario? Like, what is he doing in Milwaukee? Was this just a week where he was doing like a live show there or something like that? Did we talk about that?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Maybe you're not awake yet. No. So yeah. So Frank Balistrieri, or officially his brother, they run a place called the Center Stage Playhouse, which
brought him in for a show.
It's a dinner theater situation where they put on plays that run for 2 or 3 weeks. You get a meal and you watch a show. And Sid Ceasar was touring with this show. Let me double check. I want to make sure I get the name right. I think it's The Prisoner of Second Avenue, which I don't know what that is, but it's a play from Neil Simon, who's like a major playwright. So this might have been a big deal at the time, but I'm not familiar with that particular story. So yeah, that was a thing. Like, I've got the newspaper ad that'll be on the website with the show notes. And the week after this play, like, Rosemary Clooney was in town. Okay. I don't know if you know Rosemary Clooney.
Yeah, if she's from White Christmas, I think.
She is from White Christmas. Yeah. Good. Okay. Okay. I'm like, if I throw out some old references, I don't know if Eric will know. But yes, Rosemary Clooney is one of the women from White Christmas. She's also George Clooney's aunt. But yes. So she was like in town the week after that. So people were always coming through. Okay.
So that makes sense. All right. So do you got anything else for this one, or are we at the end?
No, that's pretty much it. The one we're going to do next time, I almost lumped in with this too, but they don't overlap enough that I felt I could do it without it getting...
You did leave one thing out. Joseph, whatever. Name's escaping me.
Tony?
No, the guy that went to jail for 3 years.
Yeah, Tony Pipito.
Tony Pipito?
Tony Pipito.
Okay. Was I saying the name wrong the entire episode?
I don't know.
It doesn't matter.
I don't know. It's Pipito.
Tony Pipito.
Yeah.
You said he went to jail, got sentenced for 3 years. Do we know how long he actually spent in prison? Because that's always really important to me.
At this moment, I don't know that answer, but so he's got the 3 years plus whatever he has on his parole, because that kicks back in when you go back to prison. I'm going to say you right now, it's probably not even the 3 years.
Okay.
Because this is already the second half of the 70s, and I know he's out at the latest by 82. Okay. So I'm pretty sure that...
But he does spend a decent amount of time, at least, in prison.
Yeah, he'll probably spend a year or two. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me. But yes, he's not going away for 10 years or anything. No.
All right, cool. Then with that, we will wrap this episode up. We want to thank everybody for their continued support of the podcast. Gavin, where can people reach out to you at?
They can reach me, Milwaukee Mafia at gmail.com. As I always say, I'm not so great at answering my emails. I was caught up to only be about 3 weeks behind, and then I found one that was like 4 months old buried in there. So please don't be offended if I don't respond in a timely manner. It's not personal. I'm just really bad with emails.
And we do have the Patreon, patreon.com/Milwaukee Mafia. You can find that also at MilwaukeeMafia.com. Just click on any of the many banners you'll see there. And also check out all of Gavin's show notes on MilwaukeeMafia.com.
Yep, everything you hear me reading here and all the other stuff that I just kind of skim over, that all goes right online. So anything that you want to see more detail on goes on the website.
And we will be back next week with the Patreon. Again, patreon.com/Milwaukee Mafia. And in 2 weeks with another episode. Thanks, everybody, again for tuning in. We'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for tuning in to the Milwaukee Mafia podcast. Join us next time for another look back at Wisconsin Mafia and true crime history.